All right, so today we are diving into The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel.
Oh, yeah, I love that book.
It's so good, and you wouldn't think a book about money would be such a page-turner,
Right.
but this one really is, and we're going to talk about that and why that is.
Yeah.
But it's less about spreadsheets and more about what makes us tick when it comes to finances, and I think that's what makes it so interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating how he really flips the script and focuses on the human side.
Yeah.
Those behaviors, emotions, even biases that influence our decisions around money.
Yeah, and that's what we're here for today, to
Exactly.
give you guys those aha moments like, well, why didn't I think of that? And Housel delivers those
He does.
in spades. And one concept that really jumped out at me early on was this idea of survival as a financial skill.
Oh, yeah. It's brilliant, isn't it? Because you get so caught up in like those big returns and you forget that actually keeping the wealth is just as important as earning it. So it's like in the game of wealth, right? You've got offense.
Yeah.
You've got defense.
Yeah.
Defense is like protecting what you've earned.
Totally.
And it's just as important as going out there and earning more.
Yes. And he illustrates this point so brilliantly by contrasting Jesse Livermore, who was this legendary trader, made and lost fortunes multiple times,
Oh, wow.
with Ronald Reed, who was a frugal janitor who quietly amassed millions.
Wow. What a contract.
Talk about two sides of the same coin.
Exactly. And, Livermore was a master of riding those market waves, but that inability to manage risk ultimately lead to his downfall. But Red, on the other hand, he understood that true wealth isn't about flashy displays of spending.
Right. It's not about, look at what I've got.
Yeah, yeah.
It's about building that fortress that can weather those inevitable financial storms.
Yeah, it's that unseen strength.
It's so true. It's like that saying, we buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like,
Yes.
which is so true.
So true.
Housel really cuts to the chase with that.
He does.
We get so caught up in appearances, we forget what actually brings us joy. And that leads us to another crucial point, the magic of compounding. I love how he uses the analogy of ice ages to explain this.
Yes. It's a really good analogy, isn't it? Because you think about those tiny changes in the Earth's tilt, right? And over millennia, they can lead to these massive ice sheets forming.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and it's the same with your investments. Those small, consistent actions over time can have huge results.
It's so true. It reminds me of that saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago.
Yes.
The second best time is today,
Exactly.
because it's never too late to start and to let compounding work its magic.
Exactly. And it's about starting early and letting those returns compound over decades.
Yeah, and he uses the example of Warren Buffett, who has been a successful investor for over 7 decades.
Wow.
It's incredible. It's that time horizon combined with his discipline and patience that has allowed him to harness the full power of compounding.
It's incredible, isn't it? It really highlights how important that time element is.
Yeah, and Buffett's success isn't just about high returns, right? It's about starting young and letting those returns compound over decades. It's like that snowball effect. Like it just keeps growing and growing.
Yeah, and I think he contrasts that really well with Jim Simons, who is another phenomenal investor.
Right.
But because he started later in life, it really highlights how much time plays a factor.
It's true. And it's funny how our brains struggle to grasp exponential growth. Like we see those compounding charts.
Right.
But it's hard to truly grasp the impact until you experience it firsthand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you can't even really fathom it.
Yeah.
And he uses the example of data storage growth from the 1950s to today.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it's mind-boggling to think about how much our ability to store information has exploded in just a few decades.
Yeah.
And how that exponential growth kind of sneaks up on us.
It does.
Speaking of things that sneak up on us, Housel also delves into something inherently human that often holds us back financially.
Oh, okay.
Pessimism.
Yes.
Despite centuries of undeniable progress,
Right.
we have this negativity bias that's hard to shake,
It's so true.
especially with money.
It is.
It's like doom and gloom all the time.
Yeah, and fear and uncertainty loom large and kind of take over.
Yeah, for sure. And he uses a pretty striking example to illustrate this. Igor Panarin, a Russian professor who predicted the collapse of the U.S. dollar.
Oh, gosh.
And despite a lack of evidence, this prediction was taken quite seriously.
Wow, really?
By many.
Wow.
And he contrasts this with the rather muted response to Japan's remarkable economic recovery after World War II,
Interesting.
which is a true testament to the power of resilience that often gets overshadowed by doom and gloom narratives.
It's like we forget what the world is capable of.
We do. We're hardwired to focus on the negative, even when we're surrounded by evidence of positive growth and advancement. Why do you think that is?
Well, a few factors at play here. One is what psychologists call availability bias.
Hmm.
We tend to overestimate the likelihood of events that are easily recalled.
Oh, interesting.
And unfortunately, negative events tend to stick in our minds.
Totally. A scary headline about a market crash is going to stay with you longer than a boring one about city growth.
Exactly. It's like our brains are hardwired to prioritize those potential threats, even as statistically they're not as likely to happen.
Right. It's like survival almost.
Yeah, and it's not just our individual psychology. The power of narratives plays a role too,
Yeah.
shaping our economic views.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Housel uses the 2008 financial crisis as an example. And while the underlying capacity for growth remained largely intact, right, that shift in the dominant narrative from one of optimism to fear fueled that downturn.
Yeah, and fear is contagious. It's true.
It is.
It spreads like wildfire.
So how do we combat this negativity bias? How do we prevent this pessimism from sabotaging our financial well-being?
Well, Housel offers some compelling answers. A key takeaway is the importance of room for error in our financial planning.
Okay, and that's not just about being risk averse, right? It's about having that flexibility to withstand those inevitable setbacks, but without derailing our long-term goals.
Exactly. It's not about avoiding risk altogether,
Okay.
but understanding it, respecting it, and having a plan to manage it effectively.
So you're saying we can't predict everything, but we can be prepared.
Exactly. He uses a great analogy.
He talks about a skilled card counter who still needs a large enough bankroll to weather those losing streaks.
Okay.
Because things happen.
They do.
Life rarely goes according to plan.
For sure.
So we need that buffer to navigate those unexpected challenges.
It's like that sense of calm when you know you have a safety net, even if you never have to use it.
Exactly. It gives you that peace of mind to make clearer decisions.
Ooh.
And this leads us to another crucial insight, the importance of accepting that you will change.
Oh, yeah.
Your goals, your desires, even your risk tolerance. These things evolve over time.
Oh, true.
And we need to build that flexibility into our financial plans.
Right, because we're not stagnant. Like our lives are constantly changing.
Yeah, he calls it the end of history illusion.
Oh, yeah.
Where we just think we're going to stay the same and have the same goals and priorities.
Which is so not true.
It's not. And it's especially important, I think, for younger listeners.
Yeah.
You might be laser focused on early retirement right now.
Right.
But what about in 10, 20, 30 years?
So true. You might want to start a family or move to a new city or...
Exactly. Change careers.
Right. All these things that, might mean you need to reevaluate
For sure.
your financial goals.
Yeah, it's not set in stone.
Right.
It's about having a living document that can adapt with you.
I love that. I love that analogy of a living document.
Yeah.
Speaking of adapting and evolving,
Okay.
Housel also delves into something that might seem a bit counterintuitive at first.
Okay.
The idea of embracing risk, but with a healthy dose of paranoia.
Okay, interesting. So we often hear about being risk averse, right?
Yeah.
Especially with our finances.
Right.
But he argues that taking calculated risks is essential for long-term growth.
So it's not about avoiding risk
No.
at all, but about mitigating it,
Exactly.
understanding it.
Yes, because risk and reward are two sides of the same coin.
Totally.
You can't have one without the other.
Right. And that's where the paranoia comes in. You have to acknowledge the possible downsides.
Yes, have a plan to mitigate them. Know when to walk away.
Right. So being cautiously optimistic.
Yes, exactly.
So how do we strike that balance? Does he give us any strategies?
He does.
Okay.
One thing he emphasizes is keeping lifestyle creep in check.
Oh, tell me more about that.
So even as his income has risen, he's made a conscious effort to maintain a similar lifestyle to avoid falling into that trap of constantly needing more.
It's so easy to fall into that trap.
It is.
As soon as you get more money, you're like, oh, well, I deserve this.
Yes, and then you're back to square one.
Right, back to square one. It's like you're constantly trying to fill a void.
It's that hedonic treadmill.
Yes, exactly.
You just keep running and you're not getting anywhere.
And another strategy?
He highlights the importance of saving aggressively in an independence fund.
Okay.
This is a pool of money set aside specifically for unexpected expenses or opportunities.
So it's like that emergency fund,
Exactly.
but on a larger scale.
Yeah, a more strategic scale.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. And having that financial cushion gives you the freedom to make choices without feeling like you're backed into a corner.
Exactly. And it also allows you to stay invested.
Oh, yeah.
Even during downturns, when other people are panic selling,
Right.
you've got that peace of mind.
You've got that cushion.
Exactly. And finally, Housel is a big advocate for investing broadly
Okay.
and accepting volatility as just the price of market returns.
Right. You can't have one without the other.
He uses this great analogy.
Okay, let's hear it.
He says, trying to avoid market volatility is like trying to go to Disneyland,
Go.
but refusing to pay the entrance fee.
You might be able to sneak in,
Right.
but you're going to miss out on all the best parts.
Exactly. You've got to pay to play. You've got to pay to play. That's the bottom line.
Oh, yeah.
And, the key takeaway here is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to financial success.
Mm-hmm.
The best financial plan is the one that aligns with your individual values.
Totally.
Goals, risk tolerance.
Right.
It's about finding what works for you.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes this book so valuable.
It is.
Because it's not telling you what to do.
Right.
It's helping you figure out what's right for you.
Yeah, it's about empowering you to make those smarter choices.
Yeah.
Navigate the complexities of personal finance.
Totally.
And achieve those aha moments that lead to lasting financial well-being.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like he's giving you the tools to be your own financial advisor.
He is. It's like that financial therapy that we all need
You do.
to understand our relationship with money.
Yes. And as we wrap up this deep dive into the psychology of money,
Yes.
I think it's so important to emphasize
What's that?
that understanding the human side of finance is just as crucial as understanding the numbers themselves.
Oh, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, money is a tool.
It is.
It's a means to an end.
Totally. And you have to figure out
Yeah.
what that end goal is.
Yes. What's it all for?
Right. And one of the most important questions Housel raises is this. What does enough look like for you?
Ooh, that's a good word.
Because it makes us think beyond the numbers.
Right.
It's not just about amassing this arbitrary amount of wealth.
Exactly. What are your values? What are your priorities?
Exactly. What are you going to do with all this money?
Yeah. How will it actually improve your life?
And realizing that financial success is not a one-size-fits-all proposition.
It's not.
It looks different for everybody.
Absolutely.
And so as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yes.
I want to leave you with this final thought-provoking question.
Okay.
What steps can you take today, no matter where you are on your financial journey, to start aligning your money with your values,
It's a good one.
your goals,
Yeah.
your vision of a truly fulfilling life?
So good. I love that.
Think about it, guys.
Yes.
And until next time,